Holy shit. Yeah, so this show with Alex is gonna be really funny, I think.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna have fun. So hey Ariel, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is so fun.
Welcome back to the follow-up to our shit show of an episode
Ugh.
about Epstein.
Yep.
Ugh.
Yeah, I've been practicing
Ugh.
meditative breathing,
Yeah.
so hopefully I'll be a little more coherent this time.
You were really angry
I
last
was
time.
real angry.
Yeah. Well, and it just isn't gonna get better, I don't think. So
No.
sorry, everybody.
Yeah.
But couple things. If you're on Facebook and Instagram and you want to participate, I'm not going to be able to see your comments until you come to Get Vocal. So if you can just hop on over either to the app, Get Vocal app, or go to getvocal.com on your laptop or desktop computer. You can ask questions. You can be on video if you want. You can, yeah, you know what, Alex, if you want to look at Facebook and pass me questions over, that'd be cool. Um, the other thing is, if you don't follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, it's True Consequences Pod on Instagram and Facebook, and it's True Cons Pod on Twitter. So we are following up to the most recent episode of True Consequences from Sunday. Ariel and I got to go pretty deep, and I feel like we could have gone for about 4 hours.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's enough there for sure.
Ugh.
We
All right.
tried to
So
limit it and
we did.
still had to cut stuff out.
So, Ariel, I want you to talk a little bit about your show. I know you're going to be mad at me for telling you to do that, but I do want people that are watching to know about your show because it's amazing and they
Sure.
need to listen to it.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so I have a podcast
A
and
couple.
yeah, it's called Malice. Lots of people call it Malice Podcast. It's not. It's like Madonna except a podcast. Malice. I guess I started last July, and it's really kind of a deep dive into the psychological, sociological, neurobiological, developmental, environmental, all of these factors that come together to create what we know as violent offenders. So I've always been really fascinated in people's motivations behind what they do. That's what I studied in school. That's what I was a scholar in. I say was because fuck academia. I don't like being in it. But ultimately, yeah, this has been a really great outlet for me to kind of explore those things in more depth. So it's been a lot of fun, and I've been able to bring on a lot of different people and get perspectives outside of my own, which has been great.
Awesome.
Including yours.
Yeah, I'm on a couple episodes. Yeah, it's a great show. Highly recommend. She's also part of the Oracle Network, which
I
is
am.
full of incredible podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, I'm like burping here. Disgusting. Lizard's here. What's up, Lizard? Okay, so guess what? We have some breaking motherfucking news, everybody. Let me just pull this up really quick. Welcome back.
Hey.
So I was talking to Chantel before she had to pop off because she has a Zoom call with somebody for work about the news in the UK. So this is breaking. This just happened about 5 hours ago.
Amazing.
And like, have you ever tried to read an article on the Daily Mail or on any like UK news site?
Yeah.
It's like nothing but pop-ups. It's like pop up, lots of ads, everything. What do you want to buy? Buy all these things. Really fucking annoying because I'm trying to read this and like it's like, hey, you need Rogaine. I'm like, fuck you. All right. So
thanks, big brother.
That's racist. Okay. Racist against bald people. Okay, sorry. Focus, Eric. All right, so Jeffrey Epstein. I'm going to read this. This is dailymail.tv or .co.uk. Alleged Madam Ghislaine Maxwell has asked a federal judge to delay a lawsuit filed by one of his victims, claiming it could interfere with the ongoing criminal case against her. Her attorney asked the civil court to consider delaying and even moving the case to New Mexico. Part of that is because the girl that was assaulted in New Mexico, but she was 16 at the time. And I know that there's some weird stuff about the age of consent here.
Yeah.
Is there?
So they're trying to get a more lenient thing, and they're also claiming that she would be implicating herself in the case in New York by talking about what happened with Epstein to this specific girl. This is a civil lawsuit; it's not a criminal suit. And the judge is expected to rule on this tomorrow.
Wow.
So, okay, so there's a lot to unpack there,
Yeah.
but I just saw that today, and I was like, "What the fuck? She's a
Well,
scumbag."
yeah. What great timing, though, to be able to talk about that live
Right.
tonight. So, what were your initial thoughts, like upon you reading that? Because I'm just now starting to absorb that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to know where the fuck she is. Number one, like, where is
Right.
she? Where's Ghislaine Maxwell? She's hiding. There was like
Right.
this photo that came out last year of her at In-N-Out Burger in California, and people are speculating that it was photoshopped, but like to prove that she wasn't hiding.
Wait,
So
what?
I don't.
Would you just?
Yeah, there's speculation that the photo was photoshopped, that it was like she wasn't really there.
We're at
That like
American. Did you say a
In-N-Out.
In-N-Out burger.
Whataburger? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's hiding. Nobody knows where she is.
Photoshop
And then
pictures of her.
and then her lawyer files this motion to like delay the case because they're worried that she's going to not be able to have her Fifth Amendment rights if she implicates herself in this specific trial. So they're worried about this trial bleeding over to the criminal trial, I guess, is the problem.
With all of the court proceedings and this whole thing making me absolutely want to tear my hair out.
Yeah.
I almost don't give a shit. I mean, the
Yeah.
judge should just be like, sorry, I guess if you did shitty things, I guess you have to own up to all the shitty things. So
Right. Like, you're a horrible person and you deserve to pay.
Exactly. I'm sorry that this other shitty thing you did is going to affect this shitty thing you're already like starting to maybe be accountable for. Like,
yeah. And
this
is the case I was telling you about, Ariel, before we wrapped up our case, our episode. It's the case of Maria Farmer's sister.
Yeah.
Okay. So they brought her from New Albany. I was corrected for the way I pronounced that, by the way. New Albany, Ohio. They flew her from there to Zorro Ranch here in New Mexico, and Epstein assaulted her. And because she was never given any justice in a criminal court for that fucking thing, they're suing his estate and they're suing Ghislaine Maxwell, which rightfully so.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm raging out now. It's my turn, Ariel.
Breathe. Center. Find the center.
It just makes me so angry. Like, how can somebody? And I ask this question like it's not the subject of every episode of my show. Like, how do they get away with it? It's like literally what happens all the time.
Oh yeah. But I mean, seriously, this bitch, right?
Yeah. So we're not calling her by her name during this.
This bitch.
This bitch.
But this bitch.
Yeah. I mean, she is like the lowest of the low in my mind because, like, she's totally, like, I can't believe it.
She not only stood by and watched it happen, she took part in victimizing these girls, and it is sickening to me anytime a woman will play part and parcel to the victimization of other women and girls. I don't understand it. I don't get it.
It's weird.
You know, as if it's not bad enough that she's targeting children of any sex or gender, whatever. Like, these are girls. These are people who could be her. And she's fine with selling them out for what? His love? Yeah, fucking right.
Yeah, money can be a big influencer on many people. You know what I mean?
But she was already wealthy.
She's already rich. She's
just
more than bankrupt.
She didn't need his money. She didn't need he needed her more than she needed him.
Absolutely.
For everything. Like, he needed her for the social status. He needed her for her connections. And he needed her to convince these girls to do these horrible things with him.
Right. And we see that over and over in these cases, you know, so many times when you get like you know, I'm not going to call it like folie à deux. It's one of those things where it's like the
The
partners,
what?
like, huh?
I didn't hear
The
that
what?
either, man. It was funny.
Oh, folie à deux. It's the madness of two, like when
Okay.
people
Okay.
like collectively
Okay.
like
Group
go
thing.
fuck nuts. Yeah. That's clinical.
Yeah.
Going fuck nuts together. It's but basically, but when you have like a man and a woman, right, who are partners, and
Oh,
you
maybe.
end up with a situation where because a woman is present, people feel more comfortable with the situation, and then you end up with like the girl in a box calling Stan, or you end up with you know, whatever, I don't know, all the girls in the Morris murders and the children. I mean, it's like you just see woman, and then occasionally woman and child in a vehicle, and you're like, oh, they're safe.
Yeah.
You know? And that's the thing with this bitch, is that she is capitalizing on the fact that she is a woman and a woman of status, and she's stylish and she's posh and all of
She's
this
posh,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. And so she's capitalizing on this to sort of wow the girls and also lure them into that false sense of safety. And then it's just like, well, there you go, off down the hall full of powerful people portraits with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
Down to the hall where he's gonna like drop trow and expect you to look at his egg-shaped dick.
I knew you were going to bring that back up again.
The dropping trowel.
No, the egg-shaped dick.
Oh yeah.
And just
You got an egg dick, fool.
for reference sake, because this is a visual medium for the first time, which is
did you bring an egg?
Did you bring an
this is chicken egg. About here, this is chicken egg, right?
Oh, this is good.
This is more like this.
Oh, so it's like a quail egg?
Yeah, quail egg. Just about.
He's got a micro dick shaped like a quail egg.
My face is melting.
Yeah,
right
no,
now.
this may make me sound like the most horrible person in the world, but I would kill to see that thing erect. What does that look like?
Oh my god.
I'm sorry.
I mean, no.
I can't stop laughing.
Okay, but can we talk about? Did you watch the deposition
No,
where he was asked about
the
that?
egg dick?
Yep.
Well, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going.
I wasn't gonna miss that. No.
So the deposition
you.
with the lawyers, when they're asking him about that, they're like, "So, is it true you have an egg-shaped?"
Oh,
penis?
is that when he was like, "I'm fucking out of here," and he
He got real mad.
Yeah.
And I love the lawyer just saying their words, not mine. You know, this is, be clear.
Hey man, I didn't
I'm
say
not
you had an
kidding.
egg dick, dude. It's just these people did. So I just want
I mean,
you got an egg dick.
I'm just asking.
Did you do
Don't
that to
shoot
Michael
that.
Jackson too? They did, didn't
yeah.
they? It was like trying.
So Lizard wants to know if Ghislaine has daddy
Oh, yeah.
issues. You know, that's quite possible. Her dad was kind of a twat.
That's also a technical term and quite applicable here.
It's a good word.
Yeah, that's
wow.
a really
It's a good describing word for her.
I just wonder, yeah, I mean, in thinking about that, you know, the way that she behaved, she really was trying to please Epstein, who was older than she was. And so, yeah, this bitch might have just been kind of projecting onto him that need for like that fatherly approval.
Yeah.
And just decided to get it in the sickest fucking way possible because she's a piece of shit.
Yeah. It's everything about it just horrible and horrifying and
yeah, that's the appropriate sound.
Yeah, I just don't have anything. So I do have some corrections to make to what I said in the episode. So the age of consent is 17 in New Mexico.
Oh, okay.
But there is something about being 16, and I still haven't dug deep enough to figure out exactly what that means.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if they're 16, you don't have to register, but I might have to correct that as well later.
Okay.
The other correction I have to make is that he wasn't in Rikers. He was in the Metro County Jail in Manhattan. Right. So, sorry.
Yeah. And actually, I did know that. And I think, I was just real hopped up on rage. And I think Yeah, no, that was one of the most infuriating things is he wasn't even in prison. He was in a fucking jail.
Yeah.
Which is not the same. So let's see. Also think the amount of years between the two is also taken into
Yeah. So if it's like an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old, it's
right.
less likely to be a challenge, an issue for the courts.
It's exactly the same in Texas. So
But a
yeah.
60-year-old or a 50-year-old and a 16-year-old, that's significant.
Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm. And also nasty. Let's just
and gross.
Yeah. I don't care about age difference once you get into a certain stage of life, right? I do think it's a little suspect when it's like, okay, she turned 18 yesterday and now I want to fuck her because I'm 45 and she's legal. Like, ew.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a little gross.
Yeah.
But, you know, somebody who's 26 with somebody who's like 46, who gives a shit? Whatever. Like, you're consenting adults, do what you want to do. If you have things in common.
That's the thing. You're an adult. You can make your own decisions at that point. But when you're 16 and you're being faced with one of the wealthiest people in the country and one of the people with the most connections to the powerful and the rich,
right?
I don't see that there's any way there's no way that a child can consent anyway.
No.
But with the weight of all of that on them, it's just disgusting. I said that in the episode over and over again. To use your power and your wealth that way, yeah, I don't.
Well, you know, and I think that that's a really great point, Eric, in that, you know, I think Epstein was very, very careful and very calculated in the fact that he could fall back on saying they had a choice. It was up to them. It was their option. They could do it or not. And it's like, how much of a choice was there? And we touched on that in the first episode, but I think that's a major point is like when you're faced with this guy again, who is pictured in a photo with the Pope. I mean, like, how much more power can a person have? You know? Yeah. Is it a choice? He could ruin any of their lives as easily as he could make them.
Oh yeah. And he did.
And we saw that with and I'm so sorry, I can't remember her name, but the one that they talked into going to
yeah, the cellist that went to, so they convinced her. We didn't really get to get into that as much as I wanted to.
Cellist?
Yeah, so there was this cellist and Ghislaine approaches her and is like, hey, you know, we're really impressed with you and we want to fund your education. And so they pay for her to go to school and then they convince her to go to Juilliard, which she didn't want to. I think she got a full ride to like State University of New York or something like that, or another school. Yeah, a good school with a good music program. She had a full ride. And they're like, no, you need to go to Juilliard. You need to go to Juilliard. We'll pay for it. Don't worry. Well,
and she'd have qualified in her family's income bracket. She'd have qualified for full tuition payment
at Juilliard
if she qualified to get in. Yeah.
Right. So she was like gonna apply. She's like, okay, I'll go to Juilliard and I'll apply for financial aid. And Ghislaine was like, that's so offensive. I can't believe you think that we can't afford it. Like, how dare you think that we're not gonna support you and all this other stuff. So they like guilt tripped her into taking their funding. And then when she refused to be a recruiter for girls at Juilliard, they stopped paying for her school.
Yeah, they dropped her.
And she got this massive bill.
Yeah, of tuition that she wouldn't have otherwise had to pay to begin with.
No matter what, like even if she would have gone to the other school or if she would have applied for financial aid at Juilliard, she would have not ever had to have paid that. And so they totally fucked her and ruined her life.
Yeah, they did. I mean, and without a bat of an eyelash. I mean, it's so, I don't know, just beyond the scope of my understanding, you know, like the whole point of my show is delving into like what makes people do these things. And I still, on this gut level, I'm just like, I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
I don't know how these people sleep at night. I don't understand.
Yep. It's insane. Sorry, I'm just going to check and see if I've got some comments here.
Sure.
Where? I didn't see any. I didn't get them.
No, not comments. Notifications.
I'm like, did I mail you?
I probably should have started this episode by saying that we are going to get into some horrible stuff, and we're not going to have it's not for everybody. Not everybody can hear this. I can barely
Right.
hear it myself.
And there's,
Trigger
I
warning.
mean, this is going to have to be a blanket trigger warning, because we can't warn you every time something shitty happens, because guess what? It's pretty
Yeah,
much
I
the
mean,
story.
It's
you
all
know, though,
shitty.
I'm sorry if you've heard anything about the case at all, you kind of gonna expect it a little bit. You know what I mean? It's gonna get dark.
Yeah.
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 So, all right. So Ghislaine, hiding, her lawyers trying to do some legal maneuvering to prevent her from facing any kind of justice for what she's done,
Right.
and it's just going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. I know that the New York State is really trying to close in on all of his accomplices,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think they're going to give up until they find them all and charge them all.
Right.
And I hope they're successful, because it's
Absolutely. And I think there's something interesting that may play into that, if you don't mind my bringing it up.
yeah. No, go ahead.
They actually, due to so much backlash in the state of New York about the statute of limitation on sexual assault, they actually put a moratorium on like on that particular statute of limitations for an entire year, so people can actually go through and put forth charges against people without any, I mean, if they can prove it in court, it doesn't matter if it was 5 years ago or 17 years ago, which is really huge
That's
and should
awesome.
take care of some of those individuals who may be up for,
Yeah.
perhaps, if,
I mean, the fact that there is a statute of limitations on any kind of sexual abuse, it
why.
doesn't. Yeah.
Look, if you can prove somebody murdered somebody 30 years after the fact, then they should go away for murder. If you can prove that somebody sexually assaulted somebody, in Texas, the statute of limitations is like 5 years, right?
Yeah.
You can prove in 6 or 10 that, yes, this actually happened and this person did sexually assault this person. If you can prove that in a court of law, why don't you get the opportunity to?
And if you have a rape kit backlog, then you absolutely should not have a statute of limitations on sexual
No,
assault or sexual abuse.
100%. It's not logical. You're absolutely
Right.
right. And in the US, we have 400,000 untested rape kits. And people are like, well, police aren't prizing it. No, police don't have the fucking money to do it.
There's no money.
And
Yeah.
the forensics field, unfortunately, is shrinking, because the people who do forensic work, in terms of the scientific side of things, they get paid shit.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them are going into, either
Private.
private
Mm-hmm.
stuff, where they can make more money. But if people can't afford it, they can't afford it, so the people who are, out there doing that work, it's a labor of love, and they just have only so many hands and so many hours of a day. So
The good news is about New Mexico, well, Albuquerque specifically. I think last month or 2 months ago, they just sent off the last of the rape kit backlog in this county,
that's
and
wonderful.
yeah, and they've already made several arrests based on clearing the backlog that they've done here, which is good. It needs to happen everywhere. It
Yeah.
It needs to happen in the entire state. It needs to happen in the entire country, because it's a tragedy that it's an issue.
Yeah. I mean, and to me, it seems like there would be more impetus put on it, because the fact is, and people think, okay, so-and-so's raped, right? That's a one-off. No, not usually. If somebody rapes someone, the odds of them doing it multiple times are higher than them not.
Yeah.
So if you can get semen, blood, whatever from a rape kit, those fluids, saliva, etc., they're more than likely going to match up with other victims, and you can find serial offenders that way. Why would you not want to get those people off the street,
Yeah, there was one serial rapist that was recently arrested because of the backlog clearing. So if you are looking for a worthy cause to support in the backlog, is a great place to send some money, because that helps to fund some of these projects. So
and just shameless plug, if you would like to support my podcast Malice by getting yourself some Malice swag, half of all profits from that go towards the podcast, the other half go to In the Backlog. So
awesome.
Yeah. So you can get some cute things to wear and also, contribute to ending the backlog. So there you go.
Awesome. What else do you want to say about this bitch, Ghislaine, before we move on to the next part?
So many words that I really probably should just not get into.
Yeah. Yeah, and she wasn't the only accomplice. There were others that helped.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I can't help but think of pretty much anyone who took part in being around Epstein, who saw these things happen, etc. They're all complicit.
Yeah.
I mean, once you're aware of something, as far as, okay, this is just a personal thing to me, I guess, but once you're aware of something, you're responsible, and how you respond to that is, it's an informed thing at that point in time. You're choosing to turn a blind eye, or you're choosing to let it still happen, or you're choosing to help.
What you ignore, you permit.
Yes. Oh my God, that's beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So there's no such thing as an innocent bystander in this situation.
No.
If you know and you did nothing, you've allowed it to happen, and you're just as responsible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is one of the reasons that this bitch bothers both of us, I think, so much. Is it's just like, you're not even standing by. You are getting in there and bringing these girls to be traumatized, and you fucking know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, daddy issues or whatever the fuck. There's no excusing it.
There's no excuse for what she did.
I've known plenty of women and men who've had daddy issues, and they're not putting girls out like on a fucking silver platter for
a pedophile.
Rapist. Yeah. Pedophile rapist. Yeah. I mean, just saying, some of them grow up to be really amazing people.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
It's not an excuse. There's no excuse.
There's no excuse. And I hope to God that she's found, and I hope to God that she's prosecuted and charged to the fullest extent of whatever they can charge her with, because she needs to pay for what she did.
I agree. And I'm going to be absolutely pissed if, upon finding her, which they fucking better, she goes to trial and they don't go full force, because they're like, well, she wasn't the one who actually did this, and she wasn't the actual offender, and I mean, she's a woman, and we don't want to make it seem like we're going harder at the woman than the man, and blah blah blah. It's like, no, she's a fucking predator. Like, no, go at her hard, full force, whatever.
Yep.
Men and women, equality for all. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
please,
equal justice,
put her away forever.
Yeah.
Big
I agree.
Fucking loss. So anyhow, sorry.
Agree, Alex, to the full extent, 100%. Like, that just needs to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of my listeners commented on the post I shared. I think it was from yesterday.
Okay.
He's like, "You need to be careful. I hope you don't get suicided." And I laughed. It was, because I'm talking about Epstein. And so,
got it.
Yeah, and so I said, actually, I think what we call it now is being Epsteined. So then he said, "Oh, sorry, my bad. You need to be careful so you don't get Epsteined." And so let's talk about getting Epsteined. Let's talk about
that. That's an interesting situation. The official story is he died by suicide.
Yeah.
Ligature strangulation, right?
Broken hyoid.
Hanged himself. Yeah, broken hyoid, right? Which is in keeping with strangulation for sure. Completed strangulation,
Kinda.
especially.
Yeah. Well, strangulation, yes.
Yeah. Not necessarily in keeping with self.
Correct.
Strangulation.
Correct.
So, I mean,
yeah.
It's like, okay, we got a little at column A and a little at column B, and they're just not kind of.
Yeah.
The hand motions. I'm sorry, that's not going to translate to the audio recording of this. But
the amount of force that it would take to break the hyoid in that manner is not something that could be accomplished by hanging yourself.
No.
It's possible, but it's unlikely.
Yeah, we're talking it's possible, like at some point in time I could throw a ball into the air and it could fly behind me instead of fall down because gravity. it's that kind of theory. It's not. It's not the kind of theory that's like, I don't know, next season on Arrow, I think this is going to happen. You know, I think that it's important to keep those things in mind and separate is that,
yeah,
to break the hyoid bone, which again, in strangulation cases, especially successful ones, you're going to find that a lot more often with a ligature or manual strangulation done by another person, because the sheer amount of force that it takes to break that bone is you're right, not going to be a person's body weight, like falling down or, you know, strangling over time, asphyxiating. It's going to be concerted effort to the point that it literally cracks that bone. It's scientifically speaking, sure, is it possible? Fine.
A lot of
let's
things
say
are
that there's
possible.
a teeny tiny little chance that it was just a complete anomaly. I don't know, but as far as I'm concerned, coming from a science background, which is what I do, I don't see it. It doesn't
Do you
make
guys
any
think
sense.
it had anything to do with the really scary murderous cop that was in the room with him? I mean, maybe.
It depends on what his price was,
he's
right?
like,
And who was willing to
he's
pay
like
it.
3 of me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I throw you off?
Go ahead. No.
No, you're fine.
It's possible. I mean, a lot of things are possible. There's a lot we don't know because of several factors. The biggest factor is somebody on suicide watch not being watched.
Yeah.
Number one.
Oops, the
How does that
cameras weren't
happen?
working either.
He was
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, he was put on suicide watch, right? And then they unexpectedly removed him from suicide watch and then stopped.
Did you see the
checking on him.
pictures of his room?
Completely.
With like 8 different suits,
No.
the jumpsuits in there, the county jumpsuits. He had like 8 different county jumpsuits in there. There was all types of weird stuff that like didn't make any sense for anybody that would be on suicide watch, because you can take 2 of those and make something to hang yourself with easily. And they showed pictures of his recently. I mean, it was one of the last developments I saw in the case was that they were showing all these pictures of his cell, and it was just like there was so much in there that didn't make any sense.
Yeah,
He
so
shouldn't have had anything.
He shouldn't have had anything. The suicide watch being taken off, nobody watching him at all is another part of the problem. And then again, to Alex's point, the camera. So the camera that was running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week forever is suddenly off and not working.
Would he doodle for a billionaire? I mean, this is like this was the highest profile thing that was going on at the time. How did they not have a working camera suddenly?
It just happened to turn off.
There's no way. There's no.
And this is for someone that already tried to commit suicide, right? You know what I mean? Like he already tried to commit suicide once, was unsuccessful, and they're just like, let's put him in a cell with like this crazy murderous, 400-pound beefed up cop, and then turn off the cameras and let's see what happens.
Yeah, so CJ says they wanted him dead. Who are they? That's the
what we all want question. Know. If we knew that, I mean, this would be a different podcast, right? Or a different discussion.
Well, if I knew that, I would probably be on CNN right now.
Or running for your life.
Doing the news circuit.
Really, that's what you'd be doing
hiding.
Is you'd be disappearing. Or suicide, or excuse me, Epstein.
I wonder how much of Elaine hiding.
Wait. Who is this? This bitch?
Yeah, I want to know how much of her hiding is related to the people that might have gotten to Epstein, and how much of it is related to the legal situation.
I think that's a huge point. If they can get to Epstein,
what if she disappeared
in jail
or Epstein? You know what I mean? And just no one knows about it yet. You know, maybe that's why she
Interesting.
hasn't been found yet, and we don't know where she is because she's gone.
I think something more nefarious is at play here. I think that, and this is speculation, but I think that the rich and powerful people that have associated with him and have partaken in the situation that he created and used that to their advantage have saw to it that they are never going to be found out.
Held accountable, yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. CJ just asked, is she in witness protection?
I don't know. I don't think so.
We wouldn't know.
I haven't found anything that says that, and I don't think we would find
Yeah.
anything if she was.
No, I agree. That's a really interesting question, though.
That's a good question.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I feel like if she was in witness protection, though, she would be charged.
You'd think, but I wonder to some extent because of the extent of the sweetheart deal that basically prevented any future associates from being charged when Epstein did this deal. I mean, did she get a similar deal where it's like, look, we'll put you in witness protection. You're off scot-free. You just got to go.
But New York would have been Florida, right? That wouldn't have been New York because New York is gunning for her.
Yeah, no, New York very well may be. I just think that somebody at some point in time probably was, colluding with her. So, yeah, I find that highly suspicious, especially given the fact that she is supposed to be standing trial. Like, if you have nothing to hide, then why are you literally hiding? What does that say? But then again, I just don't feel like she makes the best choices. So.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. It's very suspicious. All of it is very suspicious, and in my mind, the likelihood that he killed himself is pretty low.
Yeah, I agree. It looks way too suspicious to me.
Yeah.
And again, if they were trying to keep him from doing that, they were supposed to at the very least do 30-minute checks. And even though the logbook says so, we A, don't have any camera corroboration, and B, really within 30 minutes, he was able to kill himself and crack the hyoid bone.
Yeah.
Between checks, I just
Not
don't,
likely.
I don't buy it at all. Yeah. So, and I'm just to throw this out there, I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
Me either.
Like, at all. I'm one of those people that's like, Occam's razor. Like, the most logical answer is probably right.
Which is where we're at.
Exactly. And to me, I'm looking at this and going, well, logic says he didn't fucking kill himself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
I don't know. Looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. Probably a duck. So
probably a child raping duck.
Yep, child raping duck. And that's, I think, exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was. Eggs and all.
Oh,
I can't help myself.
Yeah, I know. Oh my god.
I'm glad we're having a better time with this than last
It's
time.
a lot more fun, I think.
It is.
If fun is the right word, I don't know if fun's the right word. It's a lot more.
It's kind of gallows humor, I think.
It's good to see you and have this conversation.
It's good to see you.
Yeah.
It kind of like, you have a calming presence for me. So there's just kind of this like, Eric's here with me. It's fine. We can get through this.
Get a room, CJ said.
CJ.
She's jealous.
CJ.
Oh, CJ, we love you.
We do.
You can grab a spot, CJ, if you want. You can. I won't be mad about that.
Hop on a spot, CJ. We've decided, we can all be a throuple.
So, okay. So
yeah, back to the case.
Yeah, back to the case. So the big challenge, I think, is that she's done her sentence. Yeah, CJ has a show right before mine, and she doesn't like being on camera. Neither do I, but here I am.
No,
I am. These women who were victims, just I'm excited. We didn't get to talk about this yet. I'm excited about the new documentary that's coming out. It's a 4-part series on Netflix.
Right.
I don't know when the release date is. If somebody can look that up and let me know. It's pretty soon,
Hmm.
but it looks like there's a lot of time spent giving these women an opportunity to tell their story and to
Yes.
share their voice. And I think that's really important. And
Hmm.
while it doesn't change the fact that they didn't get justice for what happened to them, the fact that they get to have their voice and take their power back is incredible, and I'm looking forward to it. I hope they do. I hope they do them justice. I hope they do right by these women.
Absolutely. And I think that, just to piggyback off of that, the fact that they're going to have the opportunity contested by Epstein himself to say what happened to them, like if there's anything good that came out of him not facing judgment, but facing judgment, it's that
He's dead.
he can't change. Yeah, he can't change the narrative
Yeah,
any longer.
that's what CJ said. The fact that he's dead
Yeah,
is some justice. It is some justice.
it is.
But I think that there's something to be said for getting your day in court.
Oh, agreed for sure. Yeah. And I do think that it's terrible that all of these girls and now some women are at a point where like they know they're never going to get somebody saying, yeah, you are like publicly officially on the like in the history books, you did these
Yeah.
things, and get to face him and get to say their piece. It's that breaks my heart. He never had to do that. He never had to face them again.
Yeah.
So,
And the thing that makes me the most upset, which is something that CJ is talking about in the chat, is that we don't know that any of the people that were in on this will ever. I mean, I hope they will. I hope they will face some sort of justice for what they've done.
right. Well,
But
one of the fantastic things about the FBI and their jurisdiction, that makes me really happy is that it doesn't matter if you are a world citizen of any country in the world. If you commit a crime of that magnitude against somebody in the US, you are answerable to the FBI.
mm-hmm.
So Prince Andrew, like CJ mentioned, it's entirely possible if they're able to, it doesn't seem like Queen Elizabeth is pulling any strings for him.
Does he get any kind of diplomatic immunity in that case?
Doubt it. Especially now. I mean, I honest to God, I think the British royal family would rather have Meghan Markle back.
Mm. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's like a black hole of disgusting, all of it.
Yeah.
There was a black book found, CJ, that had a lot of these people's phone numbers, a lot of rich and powerful people's phone numbers.
Right.
And then there were a lot of messages that were found, like phone messages that had been taken, that corroborate the girls' stories in terms of the dates and times and everything. So there,
Right.
unfortunately, it was a U.S. Attorney's office in Florida that handled all of that evidence.
Yeah.
And so who knows?
Well,
Who knows what happened?
right. And CJ, also, you just brought up that Prince Andrew was in a picture, and that's evidence. And I brought up during our episode together, Eric, but
Mhm.
he actually, we were speaking earlier about this bitch in the picture out of the In-N-Out Burger
Mhm.
in California, how people were like, oh, it was Photoshopped to show that she's not actually hiding and whatever. Yeah, in this picture of Prince Andrew with his crotch up against a 16-year-old girl and his arm around her waist, he basically in an interview not too long ago was talking about the fact that, I mean, it was probably like last year sometime, but like he was basically talking about how well, yes, that's me, but I don't know, somebody must have photoshopped my arm into this, or somebody
Mhm.
must have whatever what
Yeah.
there are way better ways to make you look incriminating through Photoshop than that. Okay, you're just a fucking idiot.
It goes to show how backed up into a corner he was in that situation and how backed up into a corner he is. He really doesn't have a leg to stand on. I agree with you, CJ. It's
Mm-mm.
BS.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can speculate all day. I have no evidence
Right.
to prove that any of these people did anything, but
Right.
I don't have any evidence to prove that they didn't either.
Right. And, you know, part of this too is we are speculating. We are, you know, saying these things allegedly, this could be the case. Um, you know, I just think that, you know, one of the things that we need to be aware of is that, yeah, we don't actually have these answers. Otherwise, yeah, it would be a very different approach to the story.
However, we do have testimony from
Right.
some of the victims,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe victims. I believe that specific girl in the photo, woman now.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right.
what does she have to gain from putting that story out there? Honestly,
Now, and that's the biggest question to me. Why would people make this up? Do they think they're going to get a payout from Epstein? You know what I mean? Even when he was alive, do they think they're going to get a payout from Prince Andrew or Epstein or any of these other people? No, of course not. He
mm-mm.
could squash them like a bug. You know, I wouldn't want to go up against a monolith like that.
Yeah,
You know, and that's a terrifying thing to say, because there's some women who are sexually abused, some children who are sexually abused, who can't bring themselves to stand against their offenders, and I was one of those.
yeah,
You know, when I was 19 years old, I didn't speak up to anybody, and the statute of limitations passed, and I was angry and I was fuming and I had horrible PTSD. And I can't imagine trying to go up against somebody with the power of Jeffrey Epstein. Not at all. I couldn't, I can't even fathom how horrifying that would be.
yeah.
You know, so, you know, I have a really, really hard time with people who are like, well, why didn't she come forward? Why didn't she say something? Why didn't she do something then? Right? Who are you going to tell that he couldn't buy?
Right.
You know, and who can you trust to know that he couldn't buy them? You know, because we talked a little bit about, like, the person with the most power is not the richest person in the world. It's the person who can't be bought.
Yeah.
But in this case, who's that been?
Well, and all these women and girls, women now, I hate to say girls because they're all women now, but when they were
Right.
girls, they were all very poor. You know,
Yeah.
they absolutely, fell into that trap, and that's not to blame them.
No.
They were in dire situations. That money could have gone a long way to help them, and
Yeah.
it's not their fault. They were girls. They were
No.
teenagers.
No. Well, and you know, you can think about things that are unpleasant, that are in some cases coerced. They can be choices, not in this
Hmm.
case, because a child can't consent to sex.
Right.
But, you know, if somebody, for instance, turns to sex work, right, you can look at them as like, oh, they're the lowest of the low, they're turning tricks because they want drugs or whatever. But the fact is there are really, really good people out there who are trying to do what they can do to take care of their
And
families.
survive.
There are people out, exactly. I mean, survival sex is real. You know, do you think people are super happy to go out and try to find people in the street, or in this case, to be dragged
Online.
into some horrifying mansion with a creep who sexually assaults you? Is that, why would anybody choose
Well, and it
that?
wasn't sold to
Even,
them as that either.
right.
They were brought under a different assumption that something else was
Absolutely.
happening. I remember there was an ABC News host, Mike, where they admitted they had interviewed the girls involved in the case and found them credible, but it was totally squashed. Oh,
Hmm. I believe it,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
believe
mean, and
them.
it happens. It happens all the time. I mean, you can look at the similarities between Epstein and Cosby,
Hmm.
you know, and these, in many cases, these were full grown women. Most cases, these were full grown
For Cosby,
women.
yeah,
But, you know, they came forward and talked about this, and people were just like, we're going to ruin your life now. You know, anybody who is willing to. And, you know, I mean, it took 50 plus women before people were like, oh, you know what? Maybe we should look at this. This sounds like it's a bad deal, you
yeah,
know? And it's the same with Epstein, you know? I mean, he does the I Dream of Jeannie and it's gone. He doesn't have to deal with fucking anything,
yeah. That
you know?
sweetheart deal he got was just beyond anything that I've ever read about, learned about.
Unconscionable.
Yeah, it just blew my mind. So, Ariel, we have about 10 minutes left.
That's
I want to open this up for some questions in case people have some questions.
Definitely.
And then we'll try to kind of start working towards wrapping it up. But this case is so huge, and I think that we have not even scratched the surface of what needs to be found out about it. And I don't know if
Hmm.
we ever will, but there's
Right.
so much else that I think is buried because he did this
Yeah.
for decades and decades and decades before he was even on the radar of anybody.
I agree. And I was actually thinking after you asked me last time if there were any sources that I recommended, and especially among podcasters, I'd mentioned Real Crime
Yeah.
Profile with Jim Clemente and Laura Richards. They do a really great coverage of it. But there's also um, a podcast that's amazing called The Mysterious Mr. Epstein. And I would recommend that
Is that
to
Wondery?
anybody. Yeah. It's very well done. It's very survivor focused, and so there's a lot of input from the women who were girls at that time who lived through these things. So I definitely recommend if you want a deeper dive into it,
Yeah.
that does an
So my
amazing job.
co-ghost
So
Grizzle, he asked what we can tell him
mhm.
about the ranch. How did he get it? So in the beginning of the episode last week, we talked about some of it. So basically, Epstein had created these shell corporations to do some of this business for him. They began to negotiate some of the land leases. There were land grant leases that the state of New Mexico owned. He negotiated to
Mhm.
take over those leases from former Governor Bruce King, former New Mexico Governor Bruce King, and he also purchased the land from the Kings. And that all happened really secretively and really kind of under the radar to the point where I'm not even sure that the state knew exactly who they were negotiating with. Um, and within a
Right.
matter of years, they built up this 50,000 square foot mansion and hundreds of acres of land in this really isolated part of New Mexico. And what's happened to it since? It's still there. I know that the mansion has been raided um, multiple times. I think that the New Mexico District Attorney's Office raided it, as well as the FBI. So it has been, searched through. The state still owns the land grants, and I'm sure all of his assets are frozen right now. And yeah, so not much has happened
Right.
to it. It's still there, but I know they searched it thoroughly.
Mhm.
Fox News
Right.
link, but sadly, right wing media broke this story. Pain as it makes me. Yeah, it's. I did see some of the coverage on Fox, and they did a pretty good job talking about. I mean, I don't feel like they missed very much on that. Although, yeah, where's Ghislaine? So that's the million, billion, $1 trillion question, Kevin. Will it ever be resolved?
Yeah.
It depends on what you consider to be resolved, right?
Yeah. I mean, a big part of it, as far as I'm concerned, can't be
How much of
at
it do
this
we not
point.
know about? How many victims are there? Like how many Romanian girls were there that were trafficked into France for him? That
Right. And that's the problem. We don't know what we don't know. I mean, they're I don't think that it's likely that we're ever going to get
Mhm.
100% of the victims to come forward. And I want anyone to know who is a victim or survivor of sexual assault of this manner, especially if it's a child. I mean, but it's horrible and traumatizing regardless of your age. There's no right or wrong way to work through
Yeah.
that. If you do not come forward, there is no shame in that. We do not, we're all in the same boat. We're not in the same storm. And so if you make the choice not to come forward, I personally
Mhm.
trust your reasons for that, and I support you. There's not a wrong
100%.
way to survive.
Who could they come forward to? Well, I know that the New York State uh, District Attorney is continuing to pursue this case and continuing to work it. I'm sure the FBI is involved, especially when it comes
Hmm.
to cross jurisdictional issues across countries and all that stuff.
Right.
Um, yeah, I think those are good
Right.
places to start. Where might it go from here, Grizzle? I don't know. I know where I want it to go. I want Ghislaine to
Mm-hmm.
pay. I want every accomplice who helped
Yeah.
him do this to pay. And I want, go ahead.
And are they gonna are they going to oh, I was just gonna say, are they gonna get justice? Probably
They need to be
not, but
called
I
out.
want them
Yeah.
outed
And and
at the very least.
and not just the
Yeah. At the
accomplices,
very
but the
least, I
people
want
that
their names.
participated.
I
They
want people to
all
know what they did.
need to be named.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That may be the most
Maybe there can be
justice we can
justice.
get
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah. I mean, even at least at that point, they would get some sort of, they would pay in some way, especially if they're powerful and well connected. That would,
Right. And
yeah.
hopefully it would hit them in the fucking pocketbook.
Yeah. It's,
So
you hear about, and I kind of talked about this in the opening of the episode last week, the difference in justice, for the wealthy and for the powerful. And it just, the
right.
more I do this show, the more jaded I get about justice, and the less hope I have.
Right.
It's sad. It, and I don't know what we do. I don't know what we do to fix it. If anybody knows, tell me, because I want the answer.
It's really frustrating to think, it's the same thing as saying, like, we'd love to appropriate funds for this or this in the government, and we love, like, there to be a term limit for senators or congress people or this or that, or, like,
Mhm.
whatever, a cap on the pay, or any of those things, right? But the people who vote on them are those people, and it's kind of like the punishments for people who have money are decided by people who have money. So what's the impetus for
Yeah.
them to fix that?
Yeah.
There's not
Kevin
one,
said, why can't
you
they
know?
find and arrest a socialite rich woman who must have a big footprint? The fact that Ghislaine isn't at least under a grand jury indictment is insane. No one cares now that he's dead.
No, they
Mhm.
don't. I mean, and that's infuriating.
The people
I
who
mean, it's not that
matter.
nobody
Yeah.
does, it's that majority power. But yeah, exactly. Majority power, nobody cares. So rich white men don't care. There are probably plenty of wealthy white women who don't care. uh the rest of us who do give a shit don't have that majority power, and I use that term majority
Yeah.
to mean that the majority of power holding, like, yeah, because I mean, if we think about it, for instance, over half the
Yeah.
world are women, and yet we're minority power holders. Over 2/3 of the world are people of colors, and yet they hold the minority power. So yeah, when we're using that majority term, we're talking about the people who are the decision makers. And unfortunately, they make decisions that
Yeah.
keep them in the status quo.
I wasn't laughing at what you said because that wasn't
So
funny. I was laughing because Alex is texting me at the same
I'm
time that he's
hilarious.
also
Right.
messaging on Get Vocal here. So
Okay.
he's like multitasking. I don't know what's happening over there. So yeah, I have
Good
some
job,
announcements, and
Alex.
Alex is taking the spot just right
Oh, I'm
now
so good
to
at
jump in
multitasking.
here. Multitasking. Was there any Facebook messages that I missed?
Nah, we're good.
Okay. So first of all, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. This is going to be recorded, so I'm going to release it as an episode on my show. Thinking I might just do it on Saturday. We'll see. It might be next week. I'll figure it out. Yeah, either way. But
Okay.
Ariel, I want to thank you first of
Either
all
way.
for being on my show twice. Super fun.
Sure. I think I'm so happy to be here, and I
We're
feel like
both a
my
lot more
breathing
calm than we
exercises have
were
helped.
last week. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Right. You
that's
are a
sweet.
calming, grounding
So I
presence
have
here. I
exciting
thank you.
news. So this hairy guy that's sitting below me on the
Oh, I
screen,
ain't that hairy.
his name is Alex. Alex has been on a couple of episodes of True Consequences with me. He was on the West Mesa Bone Collector episode as well as the Tara Calico case. And Alex and I have just announced that we are going to be starting a new podcast. And it's called Dos Spuqueños, which is kind of a funny little play on words, and if you're not from Albuquerque, you may not get it.
You probably
So-
won't get it. Yeah.
So
That's okay.
people in Albuquerque sometimes call themselves burqueños, which is like, it's just a little name that we call. So spooky burqueños is what we are. We're going to be talking about paranormal stuff in New Mexico, and it's launching this summer. So I'm
Kenya.
thinking burqueña, there she is representing. Does your hat say that?
Oh,
I thought your hat said
no,
that.
Miami.
No,
Oh, it's in there. Oh,
but I do have
Okay,
a
bye.
ticket.
okay, there's a
that
Zia.
counts.
There's a
Yeah.
Zia. So the season finale of True Consequences will be the first episode of Dos Pequeños, and it's going to be the Roswell incident. I'm very excited about it.
We might actually have to do two
That's
episodes
awesome.
just because
I'm so
there's going to be.
excited.
It might be a two-parter, but the
I
second
feel
part will
there's
be on the
gonna
new show.
I mean, come on, that's one of the most famous cases of. Everyone's heard of that.
Yeah.
Everyone's heard of Roswell. So it's going to be a big one. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
It's a good opener.
Yeah.
So we will be co-ghosts. If you see the
Co-ghosts?
logo, you can see Alex's little icon there. But if you see the logo for the new page, it's two ghosts that look remarkably like us. And and that's it. So thank you
Good
guys.
job.
Have a wonderful night. Stay safe, New Mexico. Stay safe, Ariel. And
Thanks, guys. You get great job.
take care.
Yeah.